So now we're going to dive into the syntax for how you can call each of the constructors defined within the map class. So on the class diagram on your maps worksheet, you'll see a few of the constructors that we think that you'll find the most useful. And you know that these member functions within the class diagram are your constructors because they share the same name as the class. In this case, we are in the map class, and these three member functions are all named map. You can also tell by looking at the description for each of these member functions, and you know that they construct a container in each of them. So each of these are the constructors, and we're going to look at the syntax for them one by one. So the very first constructor is one that doesn't take in any parameters. This is called the default constructor. So the syntax for the default constructor is similar to the way that we construct a vector with the default constructor. So we specify the data type. So in this case, we're making a map whose keys are string values and whose values are ints. So we're mapping from a string to an int in this map, and we're naming it food count. And we know that this is the default constructor because we're not passing in any parameters. There's no parentheses after the variable name, so we're not passing in any parameters. And the effect of calling this default constructor is that we have now a map called food count, which has no elements inside of it. There are no key value pairs, so it's completely empty. The second constructor is called the copy constructor. So it takes in another map that was already constructed somewhere else, and we take all of the key value pairs within it and we copy it over into a new map. So say that we have the map from the last slide, food count, which maps from strings to ints. So if we're going to make a copy of this map, then we got to make sure that we use the same data types for the keys and the values in the new map. So we're also going to define a map whose keys are strings and whose values are ints. And I'm going to call it food count copy. And then within the parentheses, I'm going to pass in as a parameter the other map that I want to copy the contents of. So I'm going to pass in food count here. And the effect of this is that we'll have a food count copy map, which has the same key value pairs that are stored in the map that we're copying from. And in the final type of constructor, we are able to construct a map using an initializer list. So here, this is the constructor that allows us to specify the key value pairs when we're creating a map for the first time. So instead of having to add each of the key value pairs one by one using the insert member function, we can just add all of them directly with the initializer list. So for this, the syntax is we're creating a map and we're going to specify again the key, the data type of the key and the data type of the value. So strings, we're going to map from string keys to int values. We're going to name it food count, and then we're going to follow it by not a parentheses, but a curly braces. And then within the curly braces, we're going to specify each of the key value pairs that are comma separated. So this is very similar to the way that we construct vectors with initializer lists as well, except instead of having just a comma separated values of just a single type of element, we're going to have a comma separated list of key value pairs, which will be represented within another curly brace. So here we're making a map that in the first element, it maps from a string bread to the number 9. And then the second element maps from the string eggs to the number 24. And the third element maps from the string cheese to a number 11. So after this is run, we would have a map containing 3 key value pairs or 3 elements.